So, Laura Benanti, who knew that the Countess in The Sound of Music sang? But everyone tuning into that NBC broadcast last Christmas discovered pretty quickly that she has two great songs in the show. What was that like for you to be given that opportunity?
It was a great opportunity. I mean, I knew she sang because I had done the revival in 1997 on Broadway, but I played Maria. So I always knew that she had those great songs. But it was a wonderful opportunity to get to do Sound of Music Live. I had a great time, and you know, working with Christian Borle and Audra McDonald and Stephen Moyer and Carrie. It was a really great experience, and it was fun for me because I feel like people always demonize the Countess.
Absolutely.
I feel like she's thought of as this like ice bitch, and my goal, honestly, was I wanted the people at home to be like, oh, I wanted them to get together. I wanted them to choose the Countess. Because she's not written as a bitch. She's written as like a hardworking businesswoman who's sort of like sexy and funny. So I wanted to make her more of a human being, and I feel like I succeeded.
Right. Now, I mean, the first that I think 99% of people know about The Sound of Music is the film, and this version is the live version of the stage show.
Yeah, the theater version.
Yeah. So, but in the film, Eleanor Parker, this great actress, plays the Countess. It's written so differently. I mean, she is much more sort of shallow, really. I mean, she gives up the captain really because of, oh, well, I want to go back to Vienna and have my frivolous life.
Right.
But what do you feel it is that keeps Elsa and the captain from getting together in your version, in the stage version that you did for television?
Politics. I think it's genuinely politics. I think that at that time people couldn't possibly have foreseen the evil that was the Nazi Party. You know, I think some people knew. But I think for her, she just felt like, just keep your head down, stop pissing these people off. And, you know, not to call her a Nazi sympathizer, but sure, we're about to unfold. But I think for her, she felt like, why are you shaking things up? You're making things difficult for your family. You're making things difficult for me. Just like lay low, calm down. This will all be over soon. And he felt, rightfully so, very differently. And I think she just thought, you know what, this is sort of the last straw. We're just too different.
Right, and that's that second song that's in the second act, No Way to Stop It, that it's a song done with Christian Borle as Max and then Stephen Moyer as the captain. And it's very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of parallels to some of the songs in Cabaret in that it's a very light song, but those lyrics, those sentiments underneath it.
They're intense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in that first act, you have that song, How Can Love Survive? Talk a little bit about that, because that one, it's such a lovely Rodgers and Hammerstein song, but it's not very well known. What was the sort of underlying narrative in that one, and How Can Love Survive?
That one is a little bit trickier. That was the one where I was like, why the hell are we singing this song? And then I figured out, for me, and I think Christian and I both decided that, you know, he's a little cold. The captain is cold. He's not warm and fuzzy in the way that I actually feel like my character is. I think she's a very warm, demonstrative woman who wants to be close to him, and he sort of keeps her at arm's length for whatever reason, the death of his wife, or being a captain, or having 1,000 children, who knows why. But he sort of keeps her at arm's length. So this is like a cute little song that was sort of trying to ingratiate herself to him, trying to make him laugh, trying to bring him closer, trying to sort of see where he's coming from, and just have a good time. I think this is just like Rodgers and Hammerstein being like, we're just going to have a number where people are having a good time.
Yeah, and of course, I mean and then what comes later on, it's sort of a nice, it eases you into it. You know, when they first announced this, and it's the great Greg Zaden and Neil Meron who produced it, the two fellows responsible for the last couple of Oscar casts and a whole host of films. I was one of those people that thought it was just going to be staged in a Broadway theater and filmed, but that's absolutely not what it was, right?
No, it was in like an old NASA hangar in Long Island, and it was shot like a multicam, you know, comedy or something. But we had so many sets, There was no live audience. So we would just go, on a commercial break, the entire cast and crew would move to the next set. But it was done like a Broadway show with, 3-minute breaks for commercials in between. But it was an interesting tone because, and I'm actually glad we didn't have an audience, because when there's an audience there, even if you're on camera, you play to the audience. You can't help it. It's the human-to-human interaction. And then one's performance can get too big. So I was glad that there was no audience, that we really had to handle it like a teleplay. It's a little bit more heightened than a film or a single camera, but not so heightened that it feels like too theatrical.
Right.
And it's a strange tone, and it hasn't been done in so many years. So we didn't have that much time to master it. So I think in some ways you could see the different levels of comfortability. And I feel like basically the day of the broadcast, I was like, oh, I get it. Like I had a moment where I accidentally saw myself on a monitor, and I was like, my face was huge. And I was like, oh, no, okay. And then I went and asked the directors every single time they were going to be close on me. I was like, I need you to tell me when the camera is close and when to calibrate my performance. Otherwise, I'm going to look like I'm doing nothing if the camera's far, and then I'm going to look like a crazy, monster person if the camera is close. So it took a lot of work.
Yeah, and so they never, they didn't film like a dress rehearsal and show everyone?
No.
Wow.
No, that would have been terrible. I think if they had filmed dress rehearsal and shown us, we all would have been like, goodbye, we're going to go kill ourselves. Take care.
No, so how long was the whole rehearsal process?
We rehearsed it like a play, like a musical. We rehearsed it for, I want to say, 7 weeks. And then we rehearsed for 10 days to 2 weeks with the cameras.
And just talk about that moment, say 5 minutes before 8 o'clock. I mean, what's going on in your head? But compared to when you're in a Broadway show,
yeah.
Is it different? I mean, is there that sense that 30 million people are about to see what I'm going to do?
I don't think any of us knew it was going to be that many people. I think that we knew that it was going to bring in a couple million people, but I don't think anybody anticipated 22 million people. Something happens to me when I get very nervous, I get really calm.
Oh.
It's really strange. If I'm a little bit nervous, I'm screwed, because then I'm just a mess. But if I'm really nervous, there's something about my psyche where all of a sudden I'm like, whoop, and I'm utterly focused, and it's actually helpful to me. So I was backstage, they had all of these huge television monitors set up all around this NASA hangar where we were shooting so we could watch the broadcast. And when it started, and Audra, started with that Dixie Domino Domino Meo, I just started crying because I got so excited. And I was so happy that these people are going to be seeing Audra McDonald. People probably who don't have any idea who she is. We're all of a sudden going to be like, who's that lady? She has 5 Tony Awards. And they're like, what's a Tony Award? So I had the notion that we were going to be entering and bringing this art form that is my great love and obsession into people's homes who would not otherwise care about theater. So I felt a sense of responsibility in that way, and it fueled me, and it was exciting, and it was one of the best times I've ever had.
Okay, and you talk about it being your obsession. Now, I got to take you back to 1998, and this is just, this is straight out of an old MGM musical. So you're the daughter of 2 theater professionals.
Yeah.
They don't let you do theater really when you're a kid, a teenager. You kind of, but then somebody convinces them to let you come in and audition for Liesl in the revival of The Sound of Music on Broadway.
Yes, I had won the Paper Mill Playhouse Rising Star Award for my performance as Dolly Levi in Hello Dolly at my high school, but I sang it up the octave. I'm going to raise the roof, I'm going to carry on. It was ridiculous. And somehow I won this Rising Star Award, which is like the Tony Awards for high school in New Jersey. And so through the Paper Mill Playhouse, who had been championing me, Jay Binder, who was the casting office for The Sound of Music, called and said, do you have a Liesl? And they said, yes, me. So I went into the city, but I always seemed older. Like I looked like this when I was 18 years old. And they said, you don't seem like you're 16 going on 17. Long story short, and 8 auditions later, they cast me as the understudy to Maria. So for a year, I understudied Rebecca Luker when she played Maria. And then she went on vacation for 2 weeks, and I went on for 2 weeks. And my parents came to every single performance, for real. And then when Rebecca left the show, they offered me Maria opposite Richard Chamberlain. So I was
Dr. Kildare, okay.
Dr. Kildare, exactly. So it was an incredible experience. I cannot believe that it happened. You know, people are always asking me, like, what should I do with my kids? They want to be actors, and what did you do? And I'm like, what I did is not normal. That doesn't happen to everyone. And I have a great sense of gratitude for that, because it is weird.
So you do it, as I said, and he was certainly, what, 59 going on 60 at the time, so there's acting that you've got to have this romantic connection with him.
Yeah.
And then, so everyone was talking about you at that point. And then you get cast in this really wonderful. How would you describe Swing?
It was like a review. It was a review. You know, it was like great old big band music and these incredible swing dancers and like 5 singers, which I was one of.
Right, and people. Then you're nominated for a Tony.
Yeah,
the first time out on Broadway.
Yeah.
And then, you know, a couple of years later, you get the revival of Into the Woods, and you play Cinderella, another Tony nomination. But I also think that show was a mixed blessing, because didn't you get injured during that show?
Yeah, I broke my neck.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. During the show?
Yeah, I had to do a pratfall where I would run down a flight of stairs and land on my stomach. And I had done it at this point. We'd done it in Los Angeles, and then we came back to New York. And I'd been getting little injuries doing it. Like I hurt my wrist, and then I hurt my neck a little bit. And my body got worn down over the many months of doing it. And I think it was probably like 6 months into it of doing 2 pratfalls 8 times a week. And I heard it snap. And it was the craziest thing of my life. I've had 2 surgeries on it. Thank goodness I'm much better now, but it was horrible. And it was also my first time experiencing people be like really mean to me. Like it was the first time as a 22-year-old where I was like, oh, not everybody like wants you to succeed. It was just weird. I mean, I'd never felt a sense of like people turning on me so quickly because for various reasons that are too boring to get into, it wasn't handled so well the way that it was talked about.
Of course,
you know?
Of course. And yeah, they want to keep it low key, and then you don't. I think this exact same thing happened to Donna Murphy that you did Wonderful Town with. Yes. Some of those the Broadway snipers get you in their sights, and you're missing shows, and they decide what the reason is. And it's not the truth. Yeah, it's a tough thing.
It is tough. It happened to Steve Kazee too, and once. You know, it happens to a lot of people. We're just humans. We're humans doing the jobs of what really should be robots, because 8 times a week is really hard in like physical Broadway shows. So if you get hurt, you get hurt, and unfortunately, so many people do. But yeah, so that was a bummer. But then I was able to do 9. I went into 9 almost right away after my surgery. And that was a wonderful experience. I got to work with such incredible people.
Oh, with Antonio Banderas. I mean, that was a
and
wonderful.
Cheetah Rivera.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was all about, everyone was like, what's it like to work with Antonio? And I was like, he's great. Cheetah Rivera. Because, you know, I grew up loving musicals. So Cheetah Rivera is my, you know, Mick Jagger.
Okay, so I'm guessing that Cheetah, in a way, one of the grand dames of theater, probably prepared you for Dame Patti LuPone when you started doing Gypsy with her. I mean, she is a force of nature. So
yes.
You first do that over at City Center in that huge 3,000-seat theater, and she blew the roof off the joint. And then it took a while to get to Broadway, didn't it? From having
that long. I mean, it took less than a year. The Times didn't give it the greatest review in the world at City Center, and then we had producers who just believed in it, you know, and they brought it to Broadway. And I'll never forget Ben Brantley saying in his review, I eat my hat. You know, I was
Wow.
wrong. He said it should go to Broadway. And he's like, and so Patty sent him a chocolate hat,
Oh, that's
which I
wonderful.
thought was
So
really
right, she's Mama Rose. She wins a Tony. Boyd Gaines is Herbie. He
yeah,
wins a Tony, and you, third time lucky, you win a Tony for playing a
yeah,
gypsy. So I remember
yeah.
that was a great acceptance speech that you gave. I mean, it was so
Thanks.
heartfelt. Just what do you, if anything, remember of that night?
Remember looking into the audience and seeing Arthur Lawrence standing. You know, he was 90 years old. That's not the easiest thing in the world. And I remember feeling a sense of like, because I had felt a little like admonished by or rejected by the theatrical community after all of the stuff with my neck. So I remember standing there and feeling like, we're good now. You know what I mean? Like, that's gone, that's behind me. And now all of these people who I have admired and loved for so long are clapping for me in a way that feels very real and very meaningful. So I remember that. I remember being so excited that Boyd and Patty won. I remember looking for my family at every single commercial break. I would get up and run and try to find my parents and my sister because I wanted to hug them. The one person I left out of my speech, which I still feel really bad about, is my dad, Marty. Because I was raised by my stepdad, Sal, who's a therapist, and I thanked my Benanti family, but I didn't thank my Vidnovic family. I didn't thank my dad, and I feel really bad about that still. I thanked him off stage in one of those little cameras, but it's not the same. So, but I just remember, you know, that's what I'd wanted since I was a little girl. A lot of people grow up wanting to be movie stars, but I grew up wanting to be a theater star. I wanted to grow up to be Julie Andrews. So all of a sudden, here I had this thing that I've always wanted, and it was pretty amazing. It was pretty special.
Wow, that is lovely. And then you did a musical version of, not kidding kids, Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown at Lincoln Center, which had its pluses and minuses, but again, with great cast, including Patti LuPone, but
Yeah.
you're the one singled out for a Tony nomination again. I mean, that must have,
Patty
as you
is
said,
Patty had a nomination.
oh, right, okay. You were actually in the same category, weren't you?
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that I forgot. My God, I don't want to forget any of Patti LuPone's nominations. They mean a lot to her.
Yeah.
So,
But you know what's really funny is, so I had won everything leading up to the Tonys, and you know all of the who will win, who should win said I was going to win. And so if you go back and you watch when they call Nikki's name, I literally do this. I'm watching and I go, whoa!
oh, okay.
Yeah, I did not handle it with grace. I was not like, oh. I literally was like, whoa! Oh, okay. I was shocked. It was so funny. To this day, my friends tease me about it. But before Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, I had also done a play called In the Next Room, or the Vibrator play. This play that Sarah Rule wrote, that I loved so much. I think it was such a beautiful play, and I made a concerted effort, excuse me, after Gypsy, to do straight theater because I wanted to show that I'm, you know, more than a singer, that I'm also an actor, and that was a strategy that paid off well for me. And then it was super fun to come back in Women on the Verge and play this absolute idiot, instead of like the singing, you know, the ingenue, the like soprano ingenue, or the heart of the show. I got to be the clown, which was a real revelation for me in terms of how I, you know, moved forward with my life.
And right, in terms of, you're right, of course, about that play. That was a really interesting play. But I think having shown them that you could act, then that's probably that they didn't call you in for the ingenue in a way, that they wanted you to do something a little bit different. Well, you know, what's interesting about The Sound of Music Live is that you and Audra and the others in the cast are going to be submitted over there in the TV movie / miniseries acting races. The show itself is submitting in something called special class, and you go, well, what's that? Well, like for instance, last year when they did Carousel live from Lincoln Center, that was in there. But inevitably, one of the other nominees is going to be last year's Tony Awards. The way the calendar works,
right?
Last year's Tonys are up for this year's Emmys. Now, I would urge anyone to go onto YouTube and look for you and Megan Hilty and Andrew Reynolds joining Neil Patrick Harris in really this delicious comic number.
Yeah.
What was that like to come out and be doing a parody of The Ladies Who Lunch, bemoaning your TV lack of success, shall we say?
Yeah, it was really cathartic to be able to do that. You know, I think handling things with humor is always the best way to go for me. That's how I approach my life in general. So, you know, Neil had asked Andrew if Andrew wanted to do something about his TV show being canceled. And he was like, yeah, but I want to include Laura and Hilty, which was really generous of him. So to get to come out and talk about how both of my television shows had been canceled in a group of people, with a community of people who love me and who root for me, to sing Television Sucks on television was pretty awesome. And the irony is I was shooting Royal Pains the next day, so I came in and they were all like, oh, television sucks, huh? And I was like, oh, sorry, not you guys don't suck. But it was really fun to do that. And oddly, I feel like that like little snippet did more for me than either of those television shows that had been canceled did for me.
And just for you trivia nuts, there, the Playboy Club, which I guess lasted 3 episodes on NBC, and Go On, which lasted a season on NBC. But now, you know, NBC was the one airing The Sound of Music live, so the Peacock Network came back into your life in a big way.
They look out for me. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned your father, Martin Vidnovic, who's a wonderful stage actor. He won a Drama Desk Award way back in 1983 for Baby. And you were just a baby at the time, about 3.
I was 4, yeah.
4, okay. We go ahead 30 plus years, and you hosted this year's Drama Desk Awards. You know, we at Gold Derby have issues with the organization, but certainly not with the awards show themselves. So what was it like to be up there as the host, not as a nominee? You've won a Drama Desk before, but as in charge. Oh. Okay. Boy, Patti LuPone really taught you well. That's right. If you don't give your credits, no one will. So what did you? How much? Everyone that was there said you just did a great job, and people can go on YouTube and see the best of. How much fun did you have doing that?
I had a great time. You know, I worked really hard on it for free, but I wrote my monologue. I wrote almost everything that came out of my mouth. I had my friend Jeffrey Self and my friend Kelly Hutchinson and my friend Chelsea Nackman, they contributed a few jokes as well, which was really helpful to me. But it was a lot of work. You know, I worked for like a good long month on making sure that every time I was on stage it was worth watching. And then a lot of really fun stuff happened where I got to ad-lib too, which was really great. I love hosting things. I love being myself. I know a lot of actors feel very uncomfortable suddenly when they're asked to be themselves, but I really enjoy it. And it was fun for me. I had a really good time. I want to do more of that stuff. You know, like those little silly videos that I do for Theater Mania or for Playbill. I enjoy that comedy. I enjoy improvisational comedy, and I enjoy just making a fool of myself in general.
Oh, yeah. Well, I would, again, encourage anyone to go to your website and look at your audition for the next NBC Live Spectacular, Peter Pan. Now, because I don't think you want to be Wendy, do you? I mean, or even Peter.
I mean, can you imagine if I was Wendy? That would be hilarious.
Maybe, Richard Chamberlain could play Peter then. That would be about the right time.
There we go. That would be perfect.
Well, listen, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. And it's The Sound of Music was just such a joy to watch, and I love that you've done now Maria and the Countess. So I suppose the next thing is for you to play the Reverend Mother.
Yes, or Rolf, either way.
Thanks very much, Laura. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Take care.